Ladies and gentlemen, hindsight is 2019. Well, folks, I think it's time to bring on the bad jokes about 2020, get them out of your system, and then, well, let's move on with things. The new decade has arrived. The 2020s are here, and you are listening to MultimediaJay Radio Style for Wednesday, January 1st, 2020. Let's start the show.
MultimediaJay Radio Style.
Well, folks, the new decade and the new year is off to a rip-roaring start. And by that I mean there are plenty of bad jokes going around about 2020. So last night I said Happy New Year to the Google speaker technically this morning because I'm a night shift guy. But I said Happy New Year to the Google speaker and it was like, Happy New Year! I remember last year like it was only yesterday. Yeah, oh boy. Then I hop on Twitter and I see another thing that's going around is hindsight is 2019. Because it's 2020. Oh boy, bring on the bad jokes, but Happy New Year and Happy New Decade, of course. This is the first podcast of the new everything, if you want to call it that. And so it's only fitting that it not be too specific, that we just kind of say hi and talk about what's going on before we head off into any specific topics like tech or applied psych or any other stuff that I may have a strong opinion about, or the very sorts of things that these podcasts are supposed to be about, which is any kind of deep dive analysis, talking about stuff, whereas the videos need to be more showing stuff. What's going on the screen when this is right is that it will not stop for like minutes at a time while I'm just blah, 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 blah. And on the audience side of things, people will not have a problem with me podcasting about something in detail and then demonstrating it when the videos fire back up. As a great example of this, let's talk about the show intros. So one of the things that's on the board right now is, for 2020, do I want to revert back to a modified version of the 2015 intro for the Wacky World of MultimediaJay? And to get the other side of this story, I went over to 2017 and looked at the gradual development of the much shorter introduction that I have nowadays and my reasons for doing so, and was reminded, and I think there might be some old comments out there. I also have comments that maybe they're no longer on the site or whatever that also saved to my email inbox. And the feedback that I was getting at the time when the 2016 celebrating 10 years thing was over was that a lot of folks were just hitting right arrow in the show intro because they knew what it was. They knew it was always going to be the same clips over and over again. So there was always a part of everything that they watched that they had to hit right arrow on because get on to the actual topic. And one of my pet peeves on YouTube in general, whenever I watch other people's content, is when they get repetitive with, you click on a video about something and then the first minute or two, hitting the fan here by mistake here, the first minute or two of the video that you just clicked on to watch is the person who made the video saying what the video is all about, even though you read the title and you clicked on the video because of the title. Great example. Suppose somebody is doing an unboxing of a sweater they got for Christmas. You click on a video and it's like, my grandma got me a sweater for Christmas. Unboxing. You start the video. The creator's on the screen saying, hi everybody, this is so-and-so, and today we're doing a video about an unboxing video about this sweater I got for Christmas. Okay? So number one, you know who it is because you can see the channel name and the video name when you click on a thumbnail. And secondly, you know what the video is about because that's what you just clicked on. You clicked on a video about an unboxing of a sweater that someone got for Christmas. You know by so-and-so. You know it's so-and-so. You know what the video is about. So the entire first chunk of the video, which many advertising folks say is very critical for hooking people into watching the rest of it, is 100% redundant and doesn't really carry its weight as a result of this. But in any event, to understand the ups and downs of show intros, we have to understand the history behind them. My involvement with YouTube goes all the way back to its early days in 2006, where this hobby started out as an extension of the audio-visual stuff that I did in college. Now that I was out of college, I was still an AV geek, didn't really have any real way of doing anything with any of that stuff. So once I found out about YouTube, I just put two and two together on that matter, and the rest is history. Now, you come onto this platform in its early days and everything was still very new and things are still kind of getting established. If you took a look around at the time, you would find out very, very quickly that most of the folks that were doing stuff on YouTube were basically vloggers. They were turning on their webcams, their digital cameras, and they were talking about stuff. So if you had any kind of formal audiovisual background, you wanted to do more than that, and I was no exception. So I grew up watching TV. And I remember being fascinated by the idea of television when I was little. A little box in the living room could show me stuff happening from anywhere in the world. And how was TV done in the 80s? Big, elaborate intro and stuff. But you got to remember, this is hearkening back to a day when VCRs were still kind of something new. So a lot of folks watched most of their shows not via programming the VCR, if VCRs could even be programmed at the time, or recording it or whatever. But by having the TV going, they hear the show start up, and the long intro gives them time to run over to the TV, sit down on the couch, and get comfortable. And then at the end with the credits and stuff, of course, they know it's over, they get back up, they stretch, they do a little bit of a stretch here and there. They maybe yawn a couple of times. It was a long show and they're a little too relaxed from sitting on the couch too long. And then they start doing something else without having any real chance of missing the beginning of the next show. And of course, all the credits are rolling and you're talking standard def TV. So it takes a lot of rolling some large print in order for everybody to get credit who worked on the television production. So ultimately, it was a different world back then. And for creators who just picked up where TV left off when they came here, everything that they were doing was based on the way things used to be and not what they eventually evolved into with how this video on the internet stuff has gone since then. In today's world, you may not always be developing something for people to enjoy sitting in front of their computer or sitting in front of their television in the comfort of their own home. You have mobile devices to contend with, which is one reason why I make such robust use of playlists and end screens and stuff. So if someone's interested in watching a lot of my content, they have several different ways of doing so that works across several different devices. But you could have a lot of people as they go about their day, or they're sitting on a subway train or whatever, or something like that, whether they're watching live or they downloaded something to watch and they had no Wi-Fi signal or something. You could have somebody watching something on a 5-inch vertical screen with earbuds. It's not always going to be like someone sitting down in front of the TV in the comfort of their own home. It's just a different world nowadays. Likewise, search box is on everything. Of course, you may have people stopping by your YouTube videos because of something they typed in a search box. So if you're talking about a certain video game or a product or service, they may have gone searching for videos about that product, service, or video game, found your video, clicked on it, they already know what they want to watch, and they don't really have much of an investment in watching your channel as a regular form of entertainment. So what you'll see is they'll probably make very heavy use of skipping around to try and find what it is they want to hear from you, like how much does something cost, what is it like, how well is it built, something along those lines. So it's not just like an old school TV show with people watching just for fun, or they like your show so they keep watching. There's lots of different reasons why people will stop by a YouTube video these days. And so the question is, who do you want to cater to? And that's where the idea of an elaborate show intro like the one I did in 2015 starts to fall flat on its face. Because if you talk about a show intro that's always the exact same stuff over and over again for 20 seconds, 30 seconds, etc., you're basically punishing your fans. The pluses to something like what I have in mind, where I take the 2015 intro and I retool it to be similar to the 2006 intro to the instructional series, where I say my channel is about computers, electronics, stuff around the house, gaming, etc., multimedia. Now you're going to be seeing that every single video. So it's good for people that don't know what the channel's about that might convince them to subscribe or ring the bell or something. But if you are a longtime fan, or the more you become a longtime fan of this channel, the more that part of the video becomes redundant and a waste of your time. When you've been following this channel for years, you know what it's about. You know I'm a multimedia guy with lots of different opinions on lots of different things, so there's a variety of stuff going on, most of it focused on multimedia type stuff, like stuff related to presentations, like AV, computers, electronics, etc. So why do you need to have that obnoxiously billboarded in your face every single time you watch anything on this channel? Answer, you don't. And as I've looked around various other channels, like LGR and whatnot, and even some folks like B Bishop, PCM, and V Westlife, the intros and the branding that are involved are minimal or sometimes just non-existent. So today we're going to be messing around with this old radio I found at a thrift store. I mean, you just get straight to it. In a way, that's not very creative and it's not really good in terms of production value, but on the flip side, it just gets straight to the point. So that's the key here. Plus, in my case, this leaves me free to use a varying kind of music. So if there's a track on the YouTube audio library that I really like, I can put that, or that I feel like playing or something like that, I can start things off with that. And I can also get an easy thumbnail from the title screen, because that's how I've been making thumbnails and whatnot. YouTube nowadays encourages people to kind of bend the rules of honest versus dishonest metadata with thumbnails. But once upon a time, they used to discourage this stuff. So it makes me wonder if YouTube is ever going to change their mind again. So they're encouraging people to make flashy thumbnails because this will make your video stand out and this will attract clicks and stuff like that. But at the same time, once upon a time, they had a very serious problem with people using misleading thumbnails or something like that. So if you tried to tell a fishing story, so to speak, or exaggerate what your video is about or something like that, then it was something that either bothered YouTube or it bothered the people that were watching your video, of course. A great example of this, I remember all those super extreme intros to vlogs where there'd be text going all over the screen and rock music, and they'd try to make it look like a TV show, and then it would cut to somebody just sitting in front of a crappy webcam where the camera wouldn't move the entire video. They're just sitting there blah, blah, blahing the whole time. So that's in play as well. So instead of playing around and risking potential YouTube penalties in future years, if YouTube decides to change their mind and go back to their older way of approaching things like metadata and thumbnails, where they were a lot more strict about thumbnails having to come from the video in some way, shape, or form. What I do with the title screens and everything, arranging everything and stuff to get a thumbnail from that, is actually something that kind of hits the best of both worlds. It's better than just having a random image of a video with no effort whatsoever, but it doesn't cross the line into something completely synthetic that isn't actually represented in the video. So to tie it all together with the whole show intro question before we move on to some other stuff, show intros have their ups and downs. An elaborate show intro is good for people that don't know what the channel's about. They'll say, oh, it's about technology, computers, multimedia, electronics, gaming, etc. But the more somebody becomes a longtime fan of the channel, the more it becomes a bad thing. And that's where the intros come up short. Because I don't want to punish people for sticking around and supporting this channel. It just doesn't make any sense. The only real reason for me to have any kind of elaborate intro anymore is an artistic decision, probably for something special, like something big that I want to make, maybe something more cinematic or something, but not for the ongoing videos and whatnot. Because another thing you have to consider, and this is huge, especially when it comes to having intros, is we live in the day and age of Netflix binge watching. So if you're watching a web series completely through from start to finish, so you find out about my channel and you go all the way back to the beginning in 2013 with the Wacky World of MultimediaJay, or you go back to kind of the rough draft stuff that I used to talk about with that Samsung camera with the horrible microphone in 2012 and earlier. You go all the way back and you start watching a playlist from start to finish. You just put that sucker on autoplay. How would you not be so tempted after about several videos or so to start hitting the right arrow on an elaborate intro that is always the same every single time? That's the thing. And that's really where the television-style show intro falls flat on its face, because it was made for a different era, and my reasons for switching over to something simpler in 2017 and eventually developing into what we have today are still completely valid, if not more valid than they were when I first thought about them way back when. So I think simplicity is the way to go here. If you just have, an intro screen, which is also where you get the thumbnail from, with the wacky world of MultimediaJay over and over and over again, it's probably going to be less annoying if you're binge watching than some 20 to 30 second intro that's always the same 5 clips over and over again, and MultimediaJay presents tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, the wacky world of MultimediaJay, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, and then finally what everything's about and the day, and the date on the video and stuff. Then off to whatever it was that you actually wanted to watch. So imagine that like 10, 20 times as you sit for hours watching an entire series of stuff at once. Yeah, I even think that's annoying just thinking about it now, never mind the general public. So that's where I stand on the whole intro thing. It's a cool idea, and it might be interesting for artistic reasons, but for an ongoing thing, it just doesn't really make sense, especially when you consider the various ways in which having a huge intro would actually punish people for being fans of the channel. So it doesn't really make any sense to roll the clock back on that matter, so to speak, especially when this should be about moving forward and stuff. Speaking of moving forward, now let's talk about what's going on this year. To kick off the decade and the year and all that other stuff, Geek House 5S will definitely come to fruition. Going to be doing some serious looking at what I have. And I'm not trying to be a total ripoff of whoever that Marie Kondo or whatever her name was over on Netflix, where she was like, throwing stuff out makes you happy. But overall, just a little too much clutter around here. And I also want to be able to go for opportunities that would involve moving. And I don't want moving to be anything too wild and crazy. And a lot of this ties back to what's been going on at my folks' place, because my dad, my stepmother, they were boomers that had boomer careers. They had very, very steady jobs, and they were able to live in a house, the house that I grew up in, for decades. But now, with both of them retired, they're rethinking some of this stuff, and the attitude is more along the lines of, look, when our next of kin have to go through everything, we don't want them to have to sift through a bunch of crap. So they've kind of been actually kind of backing off on the whole have a big house full of family memories and things along those lines. The sort of things that were kind of normalized when millennials like myself were being brought up. And of course, the last place I had before Jay's Geek House was kind of like that. I was trying to build a life for myself. I wanted to stay there as long as possible. I wanted to establish some kind of adult life of some sort now that childhood and college and whatnot was over. And so I basically just tried to do what the folks before me did. And it was a pain in the neck when I wanted to get out of there and move. And now I find out years later that millennials are becoming known for wanting simple stuff. And I'm like, cool. I guess I'm not Captain Weirdo for these ideas I've floated around in my head for things like getting rid of the sofa and just using like really light lawn furniture indoors. Like maybe throw a bed sheet over it or something to make it softer or something like that. But yes, I know, function over form. It's going to be a little on the cheesy side to some people, but it's going to be practical as all heck. But apparently the news feeds that I have on social media have been passing me various articles about millennial home buyers. And millennials, if they ever buy a house, they have a very, very different taste than their predecessors did. Millennials like things to be simple and functional, aka the stuff that I've been inching towards with Geek House 5S. So this whole thing of, I've actually thought about, I've got a nice sturdy desk from the 80s and whatnot. I've actually tossed around the idea of replacing it with a Technimobili computer desk, something that would be easier to move if I wanted to leave this place. Or worse comes to worse, I find a way to modify this thing so it's not a big, heavy pain in the neck to move somewhere. Just little things like that, basically. Because it is a different world. I mean, we're not talking about baby boomer careers or anything like that, where you're going to work with the same company for 30 years. Therefore, you can get away with buying a house and having a 30-year mortgage and paying it off, then retiring with a reverse mortgage and stuff like that. That just doesn't happen. A lot of times, and this is something I see even in my friends and family on social media, they don't have careers, they have jobs. So, we get lectured about, millennials aren't good with money. Yeah, because millennials have to keep starting over. They have this job and they have that job. It's not a situation where you go to a company and you start out on the bottom, then you get promoted a bunch of times and your salary keeps going up. No, it's a matter of you keep moving laterally from job to job because the business world has spent decades destroying the human side of it. So employees are resources or notes on a balance sheet or assets or liabilities. There's just the human side of it, and treating people like people has been eroded like crazy over the past couple of decades. And there's some folks out there that are thinking maybe we should go in the other direction and invest more in people and try to keep people from leaving a company or job hopping or, pursuing the what instead of the who. That's one of the big things I want to talk about in the podcasts is this whole idea of a career and what I was spoon-fed all the way up to college graduation versus the way things have panned out since then. Some people are feeling like they've wasted their lives because they haven't had a boomer career. When in reality, what really matters is if you meet good people, be of service to them for as long as humanly possible because they're good people and good people are hard to come by. It may not be popular for businesses right now to fight for their good talent to keep them from leaving, but flip it in reverse. There's nothing wrong with you as the talent wanting to fight to be on good teams and serve those good teams as long as humanly possible when it comes to sticking up for yourself, personal marketing, interviewing, networking, things along those lines. A lot of what I've heard, even in college, even when I did all the stuff people told me to do as a millennial, that classic line where millennials are upset because they did everything they were told to and things didn't work out. A lot of it involved chasing the what? The dream job after college, particularly for folks like myself who were the first in the family to complete a degree. And that's kind of the marketing and stuff like that that's kind of thrown our way. But also things like careers, moving all over the place, etc. It's usually based on the what and not necessarily the who. But we'll save that discussion for some other time. What I'm looking for with Geek House 5S and the new decade is a style that is uniquely my own in terms of where I live is set up and the functionality of everything, even if it doesn't pick up where my parents left off or where previous generations left off. Or maybe it's not as Americana or similar to the 1950s good old days or whatever as some people might like. Maybe some folks would call it eccentric or tacky or something like that, but it would definitely be function over form. Here's an example of what I'm talking about. Take rugs, for example. An indoor rug, someone spills a drink. Oh my goodness, get out the steam cleaner, this thing might be ruined. Oh no! An outdoor rug, made with different materials, and if you can get it to not be too uncomfortable indoors, it may be built such that someone spills a drink, you take it outside and you hose the thing and then hang it up to dry because it's made to sit outside, so it has to be able to get rained on. So, and this is something actually, again, the feed sent me this because they were talking about millennials are decorating their apartments differently than boomers and Gen X did. Look at these weird eccentric things millennials are doing, like putting outdoor furniture indoors. Yes, but it's pretty practical, especially when the furniture, like say an outdoor sofa, is a lot lighter. And in some cases, it can cost less, too. And if it's not comfortable enough because it feels like patio furniture, put like a sheet over it or something that's washed with a ton of fabric softener or a cushion or something. But that way, what makes it comfortable enough to be indoor furniture is small and portable, and if it wears out, replaceable, as opposed to the sofa itself or something like that. It's just... these are the kinds of things that you think about when you kind of break from the mold, stuff like that. So, yeah, Geek House 5S, definitely a thing that I want to explore in a lot more detail this year. The computers, of course, I actually have some more computers that I want to tinker with. They've been sitting around, and I haven't gotten around to actually making videos of doing stuff with them yet, but I don't want that to stay that way, that's for sure. And then, of course, there's electronics can be tinkered with and repaired or replaced or something along those lines, or modified, the things with the speakers and stuff along those lines. I also want to show the LaPi amp with the various types of speakers that I have, the old satellites from various systems I've had over the years, where I may not use the system anymore, but the speakers are still perfectly fine. So I want to repurpose the speakers with a separate amplifier for something like an analog audio setup or something along those lines. So there's just all kinds of stuff. I can't be spending a lot of money right now because last year was the worst ever for money for me, just getting clobbered month after month after month with all kinds of additional expenses that wouldn't normally be there in the span of a normal year. But as it stands right now, I cannot spend anything and still have plenty of content because so much stuff has just been sitting around waiting to be repaired, modded, tinkered with, have the dust blown out of it, something along those lines. So definitely not short on content, and podcasting can be about like things on the internet that I'm opinionated about. So there's plenty of ways for the channel to go forward despite all the nonsense that I've dealt with as the last decade drew to a close. Another big reason why I'd love to just put a darn nail in that thing's coffin and never, return ever again, or whatever the analogy would be for something like this. So here we are, new year, new decade, and I want this to be for New Year's Day, so I'd best shut up for a bit and get back to some of the other stuff I want to do around here while this thing uploads. Welcome to 2020, welcome to what some folks are calling the new Roaring 20s. And welcome to Where We Go From Here. This is MultimediaJay Radio Style. Don't touch that dial. Till next time, this is MultimediaJay signing off. Thanks for stopping by.